So for those who do not know the myth, the legend that is Scott Oldford, give everybody a quick background as to who you are, what you do, why you do what you do. Just give everybody a quick background.
Yeah. So I mean, at the end of the day, I had an internet marketing, I guess, company, and I don't know, we grew that to like $400,000 a month, and grew it really quickly. I mean, it was kind of weird, to be totally honest. It was like out of nowhere. I had no audience, no anything. I knew I had a great understanding of market. I mean, I would go beyond understanding. I helped a lot of people market online, but I was more of the behind the scenes. And then, I just ended up in a bunch of debt, had to get out of it. When push comes to shove, you do some extraordinary things sometimes when you got the gun to your head. So by the time it was 2017, we were doing, $300,000, $400,000, even sometimes more on a monthly basis, selling mostly information, some high-end coaching and that type of thing in the online marketing space. But it happened really quickly, and I almost kind of ended up realizing that online, we all have these bubbles. We all live inside of these bubbles. Now, we all consciously know we live inside a bubble. And this always has happened in society, right? There used to always be, mostly religious or political bubbles. But now with technology, Facebook, YouTube, our email even, everything is trying to figure out who we are so we can, of course, be targeted more effectively. And so what I ended up doing by mistake, I mean, this was literally 100, and I remember being in the car when I realized this, and I was just like, this is fucking brilliant. And again, almost everything I've ever done that was smart in my life has been by mistake. Like, I'm not like any crazy mastermind, even though lots of people think I am. And I had all this content, so we were generating like a lot of leads. We were generating, I don't know, it was at least 500 to 1,000 leads on a daily basis. And, our email open rates were only, 15, 20%, 25%, 30% at the very top. And I was just like, oh my God, I have such great content, but I couldn't get anyone to see it. And so I ended up just keep on spending more and more and more and more money. And at one point we were spending 70% of all of our advertising money on just getting my content out there. Keep in mind, I had no idea what the effect was going to have. What essentially happened was I literally just, from an egotistical perspective, straight up was just like, I want my content to be seen by more people. That was it. There was no like thought that it would actually have some necessarily positive effect. It was like super ego significance driven. And this is why I don't necessarily think the ego is the devil. I think the ego can be used in really effective ways. And so the effect then, of course, ended up happening of this, essentially creating myself as a celebrity in this very small relevant niche. And so then I realized that if we have a relevant group of people where we have a dialed in avatar, dialed in positioning, which is your offer, your unfair advantage, dialed in messaging, which is having your messaging right for the sidewalk, slow lane, fast lane, the different messaging types. And you were essentially, somebody saw you as relevant, saw you as the authority. And then if you could take that and infiltrate almost these bubbles, we could hack the attention of your potential customers. And typically most advertising is done upon being in front of people a few times. But what happens if we're in front of them 180 times with 180 different angles? Yeah. And what I realized is essentially there's 16 psychological triggers that if we give someone in the right order, we activate everything from the red car effect to the mare exposure effect to all of these psychological triggers that have always happened. I haven't invented anything. And that's what omnipresence is. It's not just being in front of someone, but being in front of someone with the right frequency, right timing, right messaging, and then utilizing intimacy, things like connection, conversation, and community to be able to make it so that you're never actually having to sell, but you're offering an opportunity, because we want to work with people that we feel connected in an alignment with. We want to work with people that we feel like we can have a conversation with, and we want to work with people that have the same overall beliefs and are in the same community. And so that is what created the ROI method, which is what my company is based upon now. And we started I was doing some one-on-one stuff, doing like 100 grand a month, but we're now at $700,000 a month, and we started in like February of like 2018. So pretty rapid growth.
Yeah, I mean, pretty rapid growth to say the least. I mean, going from 0 to 700K recurring in in what, 5 months, 6 months, something like that, six, 7 months.
Less than basically 6 months.
So let's talk about ROI. When you know, again, for those of you who just kind of haven't figured it out, so R stands for relevancy, O is omnipresence, and I is intimacy. And you know, it's how I launched Funnelytics the first time. It's what I did to kind of get our very first pro group, and it's how I made $208,000 in 48 hours, is because I focused on ROI over the course of 2 months before we opened up the cart. So this is extremely, extremely powerful if you use it right. But let's take it back a little bit and let's talk about the actual psychology, the actual mindset behind it. First of all, how did you figure out, like, when was the aha moment where you're like, something's up here? Like, you know, it was all based on ego. It was all you just.
I didn't really figure it out until I blew up the whole shit in bag and just went away from it and it was like, you know, I remember I was when I went nomadic, so I blew the company up. I wasn't really resonating with it. I felt out of alignment. I felt a lot of things. Came to realize the business had nothing to do with it. I had an empty feeling inside that had to do mostly with self-love and self-worthiness. Had very little to do with you know, anything besides that, to be honest with you. So based upon that and based upon what happened kind of next, I had an Audi R8, which was my dream car, for about 6 weeks. And I used to go for a 3-hour drive every day because why not? Yeah. So I was living in the basically the depths of Malibu, and I used to go in, you know, essentially a ride every day in and around Malibu. And at this point, I was doing a lot of reflecting. So I was deintegrating myself out of a 6-year relationship. I was blowing a business up. I was a lot of things. I didn't know who I was. My identity was I literally ripped my identity away from myself in many ways. So that essentially happened, and I'm just in the car one day and I'm just like, how did this all happen? What happened? And I just started thinking about it. And of course, you know, relevancy was always the thing I talked about, right? The SSF method, which is what I always used to talk about. And then I realized I realized the omnipresence thing, and then I realized the intimacy. So I think I always was great at relevancy because that was the SSF method. Google that if you don't know what it is, what I'm referring to. And then the intimacy I was always good at. I was always good at I always used to say, if something's not perfect, increase intimacy, right?
Yep.
Because human connection will always overpower the need of perfection, because human beings connect with other human beings. So I always knew, and of course it took some time to figure that out. And then, so I had 3 words, basically. I had relevancy, and then I realized what happened with omnipresence, and then, you know, intimacy. And I was just like, I mean, that's cool. I mean, I remember I was just like, what's an element? Because, you know, if you're going to create a methodology, you got to have a cool name.
Yep.
And then I basically had 3 words. I had 3 words and context, and that was it for a while. And then I started working with some of my team, started working with a friend of mine and now one of my clients, Todd Herman. And he helped me kind of flesh it out. And again, taking everything from my mind and being able to put it on paper into a model. And of course, the link is there in the comments. If you want to go take a look at it, it's an entire website on how the ROI method works, the ROImethod.com. And that's really what happened. And it was really interesting because, of course, this wasn't something I had to go and invent. It just happened already. I saw how effectively it worked for other people because of all the one-on-one work I was doing last year. I don't take one-on-one clients anymore, but last year and the year before I did. And I was, you know, everyone I was working with was having significant results. I will say I knew why, but I didn't have it patterned. And the ROI method is almost the pattern, the paint by numbers, or paint by numbers type of system to be able to do that. And that's really kind of how I realized, you know, this ended up working.
So let's talk. Okay. The funny thing is the ROI method right now, most of your clients, the people you work with, all kind of sell higher ticket items, you know, other than me, who kind of is in the SaaS business and selling software. But at the end of the day, the methodology, the mindset behind it, it really does work across anything.
I mean, it works across. Yeah, it works. I mean, that's why we're starting to license now. In different. I mean, listen. At the end of the day, this helped me build a very successful info product business.
Yep.
I just no longer resonate with selling information. Right. I was just like, I can't do this. It just wasn't in alignment with my personal beliefs anymore. Nothing wrong with someone that does that. It's just a personal decision. You know, and we've brought this into, you know, we're bringing this into e-commerce now. We've brought this into real estate, and it has crushed it in real estate. I mean, at the end of the day, this is the fundamentals. For some reason, for some dumbass reason, internet marketers forget that human beings are human beings.
Yeah.
Like, it makes no sense to me, and I think it's because I read so many psychology books growing up. That's why I really think I'm good at marketing. Because I've watched, I consume so much information about human psychology. All this is just doing what we've always done. Like, take a brick and mortar. We have a relevant offer, a relevant avatar, relevant messaging in a local area. We are around the local area. We advertise, we put posters on the thing, we put on the radio. This is the exact same thing every business has ever used ever since have been exchanging and bartering things to one another, ever.
Yep.
All I'm doing is putting it in a nice context that allows for someone to be able to do it in an online world. But for some crazy reason, which I'm thankful that there is a crazy reason to be able to do this because it profits me greatly, we forgot about that when we went.
You know what that is? The answer is simple. I mean, marketers understand one thing, and that's that humans like to buy shiny objects and things that solve problems quickly. So you get away from the actual fundamentals of what marketing is. You get away from what the actual fundamentals of human psychology, and you start selling the quick fixes, the latest tactic, the one, you know, and then marketers now start believing, or the people who are coming into the marketing world, now they start believing that this is actually how marketing works, right? So it creates this weird,
it's based upon the fact that people will not buy into the long game, and you really got to play the Warren Buffett playbook when it comes to marketing.
Yep.
And so you know, I think the long game is the only game. I think that right now we're definitely optimizing our online sphere for people that are going to be able to play the long game. And I mean, that's the only people that I work with are the people that are in this for the long game. I'm not that's very much my own personal belief system. And I think up to this point, most people got away doing what they did because internet, like, traffic was so cheap.
Yeah, well, that's fair.
But not anymore. Not by a long shot. And just to clarify it back, I think that this works in every single industry. I know this works in every single industry. Difference is I had to go in on one industry because I have a hard enough time being a bald 27-year-old dude on a fucking beach. I can't be everything to everybody.
No, and nor should any business.
I mean, most of my videos, I look like I'm a fucking rapper. You turn the audio off, I look like a fucking rapper.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, 100%. Well, I'm in Venice now. You know, I got crystals on my desk. I mean, how many people are actually resonating with that? So I got candles, I got spray. Like, I mean, like, yeah, I'm in.
You're all the way in now.
I am in the pocket as far as you can go, you know, and the further I go, the more money I make. So until that changes, we'll see what happens. But and that's why, you know, like the way that we're positioning the ROI method and the way that we're developing this as a $100 million plus business is the fact that this can be used in every single business, but it needs to be used differently. Like real estate agents, slightly different than high ticket. We specifically only sell for high ticket right now.
Okay, so let's dive into the intricacies of ROI and where those differences lie. So let's start with the R. Let's start with relevance. Break it down. I mean, I think, you know, if you're a marketer and you don't understand relevance, you got a lot of work to do. But either way, break it down in terms of steps.
Sure.
How you approach relevancy.
So relevancy really comes down to, and again, this is on the website I shared with you. Relevancy comes down to having, of course, the perfect audience, like knowing who you actually want to work with, which is an intersection of who you actually want to work with. Listen to that, okay? Who you actually want to work with, not who's going to make you money, who you actually want to work with. So that's the first. Number two, who you can actually help. And number three, who's going to actually pay you. So it's like the intersection of those three things is like the perfect avatar. So that's the first. The second one is positioning. So how are you positioning yourself to that person, which essentially comes down to what is your unfair advantage? If you want to know how to uncover that, type into Google Scott plus unfair advantage. I have a great article on Entrepreneur and a great video on YouTube on how to do that. It's like a 6-step process. And then your methodology, like you should have your own ROI method. I think every business should have their own methodology. Yep. If you do not think you have a methodology, that's bullshit. Every single one of us as a human being has a process because we are process patterned human beings. Human beings create, identify, and utilize patterns always, even if they feel erratic. The next part after that is messaging. So making sure that you know what your messaging is for the type of people that you're wanting to go after. And there's 3 different messaging types. There's the pain problem messaging type, meaning people that do not understand their pain and problem. Yep. There's people that understand pain and problem, but they need to understand the process and methodology so they can see the yellow brick road, and they can be like, oh, this is what life after is going to look like. And then there's the fast lane, which are the people that actually want a solution pretty soon. Now, so we'll go back to that in a second. And then the last part is the offer, right? So you want an offer that's actually related to those 3 things. So it's kind of like you have to be going to the right people in order for your position. And then if you do not have the right positioning, your messaging will not work. If you have the wrong offer, your messaging, you might have the right group of people, but you won't be able to get anyone to pay anything. Or your offer may not be able to make you enough money to be able to be relevant to your audience. So these 4 things are essentially interchangeable. What I find the most is that people get 2 of 4 of these right. Okay. They'll get the avatar, they'll get the messaging, terrible offer, terrible positioning. If somebody doesn't know what you do in less than 3 to 5 seconds, you're essentially fucked, right? Because the idea of it is that relevancy is based upon someone being able to look and say, oh, this is for me or this is not for me, okay? And the beauty of a methodology is it allows the logical brain of someone to be able to buy into something, because at the end of the day, there's only so many people that can buy into me, only so many people that can buy into you, Mikkel. Yep. But a lot more, we broaden the audience when we get someone to buy into a methodology, because someone will talk, you have the ability to become liked if your shit is good. Okay. But if someone doesn't see that your methodology, if the logic brain doesn't say, yes, this makes sense, the ability for someone to connect with you becomes very, 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 very low. Because there's only so many people that are willing to connect with who you are as an actual individual person. So that in a nutshell is relevancy, of having a relevant avatar, having the relevant positioning, relevant messaging, relevant offer. And those things together allow you to get someone's initial attention and show them your sort of secret sauce, which allows you to activate someone's logic center so that you can actually, in the future, and we'll talk about in Omnipresence, hack the attention. But there's no point in hacking the attention. So there's no point in being omnipresent unless you're actually relevant, because then you're just a mosquito. Yeah. So this is what Tai Lopez did, and I don't have any disrespect for Tai, but Tai Lopez had a lot more money than most people do, and he went straight into omnipresence, and he didn't really do a good job of being relevant necessarily, in my opinion. And of course, that's why he got the mosquito effect. Yeah.
Not even close. Okay. So let's say you're able to nail down relevancy. You've got these 4 things. What do you focus on next? Is it intimacy or omnipresence?
So you can't really focus you can focus on intimacy, but I like to focus on omnipresence, because we want to create a system of ROI. We don't want to, ideally, you don't want to create a manual process for ROI. So omnipresence is essentially the fact that we want to be in front of somebody every single day, multiple times a day. But we know that what someone sees needs to be at the right timing, and we need to know what they're engaging with, and we need to have some idea of what's actually happening. So I'll give you an example. In the first 14 days of somebody coming and knowing you, what is it that you want them to know about? The typical response is your product. or testimonials, or that you're good at something via testimonials or case studies. That, in my opinion, is bullshit. In the first 14 days of someone knowing you, you need to get them to reimagine their pain and problem. They need to see that you have a process and methodology. They need to see that you actually have value. So being able to actually share actual value with them, whether it's a blog post, whether it's 11 steps to do this or whatever it may be. They need some level of a personal story to be able to say that you're actually a human being. And then ideally some type of PR or podcast or whatever it may be. So in the first 14 days, you should not be selling anything. What you're really trying to do is you're trying to build the fact that you have a process methodology. Here's who I work with, and here's how I help them. Not how I help them buy something from me, but how the process or the methodology on how to do it. Then you can get into the rest of the stuff. And so basically we have a methodology that goes 0 to 14 days, what happens after these in different engagement groups. I won't get into it because I kind of need a board. And again, if you go to the ROImethod.com, a lot of this stuff's over there. And so what we found is essentially these 15, 16 psychological triggers spanned over the first 120 days. If done properly with the right frequency, the right timing, the right, what we call content blocks and content stacks, we're able to essentially collapse time and increase the momentum where that person is looking at that area of their life in which you serve and which you have a product or service for. And we, of course, make it so it's essentially a blue ocean. So we're creating a small pond where you're the big fish, and we're reminding the person that you're a big fish 2 to 4 times a day.
Wow.
So, of course, this has a celebrity effect. I mean, yeah. I can't walk outside of my place in Venice. I get stopped 2 to 4 times a day just walking around my, like.
Do you actually?
Oh no, it's bad now. It's bad. It's gone to a new level now.
Because I remember when this is a side note. I do remember when you were kind of testing and playing around with like ads in Toronto.
I'm not even doing a campaign for Venice. This is just like this is just overall. Like I'll be on the beach. I'll be on the beach and someone will come out and like they're starstruck. Okay, like. Legit, like it's pretty crazy. And keep in mind, these aren't like, you know, somebody like not making money. Like a lot of these people are like doing $1 million a year.
Wow. And
so what we're essentially doing is we're making it when someone sees something over and over and over again. What we're actually doing is so the Facebook newsfeed. It doesn't matter if it's Facebook. Any type of information that's coming at you. There's this thing in advertising called jolts per minute, which got transformed into jolts per second. So browsing the Facebook newsfeed gives you 3.7 jolts per second, okay? And so essentially our ability on the newsfeed is we can jolt something into someone's subconscious memory, which then, into someone's conscious memory, which then goes into someone's subconscious memory, which then gives us the ability to make whatever belief system that we have their belief system, because we all think we have our own belief systems. That's fucking bullshit. Yeah. Our belief systems are being programmed by whoever's programming us, okay?
Yeah.
So we have 2 options in life. We have the option of programming ourselves or being programmed. Our customers typically are being programmed. And my belief is we can ethically change fundamental belief systems around what we have to offer to be able to allow that person to want us and only us. And getting to the point where the number of people, I get at least a couple of people a day that message me being like, hey, I had a dream last night about you. We need to work together. So think about this. We're reverse engineering the woo-woo moment of someone saying, this is meant to be. That is it.
That's amazing. Guys, if you're listening and you're paying attention to what Scott's saying, comment and say, like, throw some flames, throw some fire in the comments. Just let us know that you're paying attention. And the funny thing is, you're absolutely right. Isabel is 2 years old now, or almost 2 years old, and it's so funny how watching a baby, like when you have a kid, your entire mindset is going to shift just because of what you just said about how it's programmed, right? Like, funny thing is, Brigitte was hanging out with Isabel in the garden over on the terrace, and she saw a bee and like a wasp, and like Brigitte freaked out. Like she started whopping it, and she started and she let out a little scream, and instantly Isabel now is like, bee, and she freaks out. It's like she was just instantly programmed that like a wasp is bad, and therefore if it flies around me, I need to react this way.
Right.
And just seeing that development and realizing that actually that's all we are. We're, as humans, that's, you know, we're just malleable things that now take in this information. How we interpret it is purely based on our past belief systems and our past experiences and how our brain is.
100%. I mean, you know, regardless of what you believe on the political, of what happened in the last election in the United States, this is fundamentally what they did.
Yeah.
They found omnipresence bubbles, created the exact message that needed to be seen by that person to change beliefs. That is all we're doing. And we are being manipulated whether you want to know it or not. And we're being manipulated, I'm not just talking about politically, but like, this is what everyone has always done. It's now just accessible to everybody.
So a lot of people are, and I agree. If you don't really study psychology, if you don't look at this, you know, from the human, the very fundamental human mindset, it in practicality and, you know, trying to wrap your head around this, it is kind of tricky. It is very, it's like, it's not how you grow up. You don't think about these things. So how did you start to realize, I know you started reading books about psychology as a kid, and you were always kind of a scientist at heart, and, you know, you always kind of studied this kind of stuff, but normal humans don't think about this stuff, right? Regular people don't sit down and start thinking about this.
Which is why it's so powerful, because no one actually thinks about it. Yeah. Like everyone realizes they're in a bubble, but no one actually consciously thinks about the fact that they're in a bubble. And you think what you see on your newsfeed, you think I see on a newsfeed subconsciously.
Yeah, right? It's so true.
And so this is the beautiful part. This is why. So we had a great case, and she's actually back in Toronto now, Jess, which is also in Project Nuclear, which is one of the people that we're working with to license the ROI method.
Nice.
She now has about an audience of 15 to 20,000 people. She started with us in April 15th. She had zero. I'm talking like nothing. Okay, nothing. Okay, none. She's now got invited to 3 of the top industry real estate conferences in the world in less than 4 months, and she's now has over a $2 million run rate.
Wow.
Yes.
Incredible. Like, but and
I mean, like, literally, we can reverse engineer. We can make someone famous overnight. Is pretty much what it comes down to. And that's why, like, when I launched my book in 2019, it's called The Nuclear Effect, and it's basically when you implement this, you automatically create 3 currencies. You create the currency of money, the currency of relationships, and the currency of audience, which is money, fame, and influence. The 3 things that basically make it so you can get whatever you want in the world. Now, of course, I look at it through the lens of being able to utilize it to be able to make massive impact in the world. Yep. But quite literally, that's what it is. Now, here's a really other interesting thing. It allows you to have, it's a currency converter. So think about this. If you utilize this and you have an audience, I'm working with a lot of influencers now that have the millions of likes and followers and everything else. Well, you can now use this to be able to turn it into money. And you can turn your money into audience, which allows for you to be able to take your money, turn it into audience, and now have a self-repeating ability to make more and more money. And then, of course, the same thing happens with the relationship. So literally anybody in my belief system, and I've been $1 million in debt, and what I realized is, I mean, money is a made up, you know, just agreement between me and you. And at some point, that agreement's going to come to an end. Yep. And who knows what that will end up being. But I do know the 2 currencies of the 3 that I can actually directly impact are audience and relationships. And so that's why I love this. And this is why I love what happens when you implement the ROI method, because you have this nuclear effect. You literally blow up, and now all these opportunities, I mean, the opportunities that are happening to me. I had a buyout offer 6 weeks ago for a ridiculous amount of money, like ridiculous amount of money for a company I started 6 months ago. Like, that would have never happened. Guess how that person found me? That person kept on getting retargeted with my YouTube ads, saw me at Air One, came up to me, said, "Hey, we need to talk."
Wow.
Yeah. Which, by the way, is a local grocery store for anybody that doesn't know Air One. So it's kind of like, if you want to build a sustainable business, scalable business, and you want to be able to also blow up in all areas of life, this is the methodology. I'm not going to tell you that you're not going to have issues. I'm not going to tell you you're not going to have delivery issues and everything else. I mean, one of the interesting things is that you will typically be able to grow faster than you can actually grow because the infrastructure takes longer than your ability to be able to monetize.
Yeah, you know, a funny thing I read about growth. Most businesses go through, like even startups who actually get an influx of cash and go and spend all of that for growth. You end up going through 2 rounds of people, of employees, of actual like staff, because the growth of the business can happen so fast that people's mindsets actually can't grow as fast. Like they can't evolve their own mindsets as quickly, and it's cause for massive business failure. Like a lot of businesses just can't. Growth is a two-edged sword. Like it's great on one side, but on another side, it can fuck you up completely. It can fuck
it can fuck you up real bad, real fast, and it's the weirdest kind because you're like, wait a minute, because most people aren't in that situation. Most people are like, you know, they can't get enough money to scrape by.
Yep.
So when you have the opposite problem where you have a stacked bank account but you can't deliver it's worse because that's how you can't get a bad reputation not having customers. Right? Like it's just not possible. I just gotta get water again.
Yeah, no worries. Can you still hear me?
I can still hear you.
Okay, so cool. So all right. Let's say now you have this system. You've thought through about the first 120 days. You're really, you know, you're creating the right content blocks for the right time. You're very relevant. You know your offer. You know your client, your avatar. Where does intimacy fall into this?
So, you know, intimacy is really, you know, it comes down to realizing that if you do any research into intimacy, you know, obviously we're not talking about the sexual type, first off. I literally have a person in my company. We have like 38 people in our company now. One of the people, their name is Head of Intimacy. That one turns a few heads every once in a while, you know. Yeah. Her friends and family is like, what are you doing over there? But you know, if you look into it, intimacy is a really, really interesting thing. So essentially what it comes down to is this: it's impossible to be relevant if you're not yourself, because of course it's very, very difficult to it's very difficult to get someone else's buy-in when someone doesn't see an authentic, vulnerable version of yourself, which of course is connection. So this is where like personal philosophy and personal story, some of those psychological triggers are so important based upon this. And inside of intimacy, this connection, if you look at the 12 types of intimacy, there's some really, really good research in there that's also in my book that I'm about to finish right now.
Can you name a couple?
So for example, conflict intimacy. So for example, if I share a story about conflict, if you have also had that conflict, you automatically have a version of intimacy with me.
Yep.
Right. And so, you know, there's intellectual intimacy. If I say something that is smart enough and you're also that smart to be able to also understand that, we now have an actual connection through that intimacy, right? Through that level of whatever, whether it be conflict or whatever. Now, I'm borrowing this from literally like romantic. The 12 types of intimacy were created for, you know, a relationship with your wife or your significant other or whoever it may be. But I'm essentially adopting it into business because the business is the exact same thing minus the sexual intimacy, or we'll get into some real big problems if it's sexual intimacy. That's the one you cannot go to. Yeah. So the first one's connection. So that allows someone to be able to buy into you, which is really, really important. That's why influencers are so important for bigger companies, because they can't get people to buy into them as an actual brand, most of them at least. The second one is conversation, which just simply comes down to the fact that most brands, personal brands, whatever, just do not have conversations. They do not have conversations via email. I mean, the number of people that are surprised when they get an email response from my email list, even though it's, you know, hundreds of thousands of people and so on and so forth, is fascinating. Like fascinating.
Yep.
Like it's truly fascinating. Same thing with ad comments. You know, conversation is so important for someone to feel like there's an open communication, because our entire world just goes back to intimacy too. Intimacy is a human need, not a human want, right? It really, truly is a human need. And the ability to feel seen and heard in society Whoever feels the most seen and heard is the person. If you help someone feel seen and heard, the chances of them doing business with you is ultimately way higher than anybody else that did not see and hear them.
Yeah.
And that just doesn't matter if your product sucks. That's just simply because people are so disconnected that just the fleeting quality of feeling like somebody gets you is enough for someone to give you their credit card.
Yeah, man, look, and everyone watching, like I hope you understood what Scott just said, because it is so powerful. The amount of people that came to me, especially after the first launch of Funnelytics Pro, who came to me and said, Mikkel, I'll be honest, I don't even know what Funnelytics Pro does. I'll be 100% honest.
I mean, you signed up for something that was, we do business together. You had no fucking idea what I even sold you.
No idea.
It's a little bit better. I mean, we got 59 people that were helping, that are over 7 figures that we're helping right now, that are, in the same container that you're in. And I mean, the first 2 dozen had no fucking idea what they sold, what they bought, because
I'll just let me just explain this very quickly. So Scott and I were chatting. This is probably back in March. Yeah, something like March, and
end of March, or actually mid of March, actually.
End of March, and Scott's like, so Mikkel, I've got this thing. So I have this offer. I think it's really good. He sends me this Word document, and it's like a Google sheet. You were doing a screen share, and you're like, I'm calling it Scott's Badass Offer. I'm like, all right, that's a terrible name, first of all. But all right, and then he goes and starts listing, and I'm not even paying attention. And it's like, oh, you get to chat with me once. Like, you just listed things, and at the end of it, I'm like, all right, how much, Scott? And he's like, $6,000 a month. I was like, all right, fine, let's just do it. Because the reality is, it's not even about the money. Like, I have such a connection with you and such a relationship with you that I know that either way I'll make the money, and that's
100%. 100%. Yeah,
that's not even.
Well, but there's an interesting element of that. It's just like the overall element of business itself is, if you're doing a good enough job with all of these, people will pay you whatever you ask them.
Yeah.
And I mean, you were smart to get in at that point. I mean, it's $10,000 a month now, so you got the Mikkel debt discount.
I got the neighborhood discount.
Yeah, you did get the neighborhood discount. And I remember the first time I pitched it. So I pitched it to Rachel. You know Rachel, right?
Yeah,
Rachel. Yeah, you met them. So if I remember correctly, you were in the little villa, I don't know, house thing in San Diego back in February, right?
Yep.
No lie, okay? I was with them just hanging out, right? Just from a friend's perspective. And I was just like, yeah, man, I just had these like 12 people that came to this mastermind. They're trying to figure out how to pay me money. I don't want to do one-on-ones anymore. And I mapped this offer out on a like an easel pad. And I was like, guys, like, would you sign up to this for like $5,000 a month? And they're like, for like a year? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, cool. Awesome. I'm like, give me a couple of weeks and like, I'll take your money now, and like, I'll take $5,000 now, and like, we'll go do it. And I got the $86,000 of monthly recurring. That was a Thursday. By Monday, I was at 86,000. I think it was 86 or 89, 1,000 a month in recurring revenue on a 12-month contract. And it just so happens we had that like little interview thing on a Monday, and like, you were one of those people. And so that entire thing happened, though, just to go back to it for a second, because I had so much relevancy, omnipresence, and intimacy inside of the world already, and I was able to capitalize on that. So I exchange relationships and audience for money in that case, and then of course what I do is put money back into audience and relationships. So it's like essentially a self-profit. It's just basically a big cycle of making lots of more money and audience and relationships. Because the more you crush it, the more I'm going to crush it. The more I crush it, the more you crush it.
Yep. Now, don't, like, guys watching, don't go and take this as like, hey, the funny thing is, like, this is kind of the power of this is that you can sell whatever price you want to kind of whoever you want, as long as they fit your avatar. But like, don't discount the fact that you actually have to serve them and you have to help them. That will only go so far. Your reputation still precedes you, and you still have to actually deliver value. But that's the power of combining relevancy, omnipresence, and intimacy. And again, just to kind of give you guys some context here, it was the same thing. It was the same approach and the same mindset that I had when I did the very first launch. The second launch was slightly different, but the very first launch was very, very much focused on deliberately creating relevancy, omnipresence, and intimacy. And yeah, we did over $200,000 in 48 hours in revenue, and it's only attributable to, well, not only, but the majority is attributable to those three components. You focus on that, and people now start connecting with you. And like I said, people came up to me and they're like, "Mikhail, I don't even know what I bought, but I just bought." And that's powerful.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. It's a very powerful thing. So, all right. So on that note, Scott, let's kind of wrap it up a little bit. Some people said, you have questions. List your questions out, guys, because otherwise you'll miss out. So make sure you list your questions. But how do you kind of now wrap all of this up? Like, in theory, it sounds great, right? In theory, it all makes sense. But how do you actually, if you were to give a high level overview of how do you actually implement this? How do you actually do it? How can you break it down in just, again, high level overview? Let's give a practical example. Let's break it down for somebody selling high ticket coaching.
Basically, the biggest part of it is we have this thing called the Relevancy Grid. I'm just gonna put a link in here because we literally just put up new training on this. Is this it? I think this might be it. You don't even have to you don't even have to opt in for this. This is like, I did a training on how to actually implement it, because I don't want to, it would take me another like 10, 15 minutes to necessarily go into it. But largely it's about being able to get these psychological triggers. And there's this thing called the Relevancy Grid. And we basically get you to fill out these different relevancy types inside of this relevancy grid so that you can then put this content to the people that are already inside of your audience, whether it be Facebook, Messenger bots, YouTube, Google Display Network, email, doesn't matter what it is, text message, doesn't really matter what it is. And so I think that is honestly the biggest part. If it's relevancy itself, like how to gain relevancy, that is honestly a little bit more specific, but you're still just going into, am I going to the right avatar? Do I have the right messaging types? Do I have the right offer that's relevant? And am I positioned to be a celebrity that's here?
Okay, sounds good. So on that note, let's just see if there's a few questions that we can answer. And do you have any?
I see. Do you have any book recommendations about intimacy in this realm? No.
One's coming soon. I know one's coming in early 2019.
Yeah, mine. I will say this book here, The 5 Love Languages, will drastically change your thinking process about intimacy. And if there's one other one that I could say, hold on a second here.
Do you read a lot now?
Fuck, I got a lot more time, so I ended up reading a lot more. I'm not the CEO anymore of my company, so it's just like there's only so much fucking shit you can do on a daily basis. There's one more, but I forget the name of what I'm actually trying to go for here. Anyways, honestly, there's unfortunately like not as much the interest. So the interesting thing about intimacy is almost everything is always based upon relationships, but not relationships in the form of business relationships. So there's not a whole lot in there. I will say a really good book about just the mind, so I've really gotten into how can I hack how can I inception hack? How can I get into your mind, subconscious, and get to the point of being able to change your fundamental beliefs? The Ravenous Brain is a really good book about how consciousness can be manipulated. Not necessarily for bad, but the book talks about manipulation of your consciousness for yourself. I've taken it as, how can we use that in the context of other people?
Interesting.
Right.
All right.
Many people really understand what they have to do. The big issue is how to put it all together. What do you say about that? Chain yourself to a desk and figure it out. I mean, that's fucking easy.
Very simplest answer for that question is find someone who's done it and who can do it, and hire them. Hire a mentor. Work with somebody who can actually help. Get out of your own way. Change your mindset about investing in yourself, and don't look at money as like, oh well, these are my acorns that I'm hiding away. And invest in yourself and invest in somebody who's done it and follow them. That's the easiest, best way if you don't know how to implement it yourself.
It truly is. It truly is. I mean, I've spent at least $500,000 on mentorship and coaching. It is by far the best investment ever. I also put a link there on how you can work with us. We work with people that are already doing at least 75,000 plus on a monthly basis, really wanting to scale up, and people that have a high ticket offer or want a high ticket offer and want to use this stuff, and we help you kind of create a leveraged program. Also, if you go on scottoldford.com, if you do not have a high ticket offer, I will basically have a 32-minute training. A lot, and there's literally it's on a page. I don't opt in for anything anymore almost. I don't really collect a whole lot of email addresses anymore. The pixel is a little bit more valuable to me.
Yeah, and you collect a lot of pixels though.
Oh, I got lots of pixels. Me and you, we got lots of pixels. We got all the pixels.
I got all the pixels. You're the pixel.
If I could convert my pixels to my bank account, I would be infinitely more rich. I'd be a lot more richer. So anyways, so there's really good stuff over at scottoldford.com as well.
I posted a quote up top. Hope it doesn't get lost.
I can't.
I'm looking at B Live, so I don't actually see people's faces or their comments.
Can you repost that, Joe?
Yeah, I reposted the comment. I know one person asked about they don't think it works for their industry because their clients are exclusively nonprofits, so their product is donations.
This would definitely work for that, because basically you're just retargeting all your donors and making them feel like they need to donate. That's super simple.
Yeah, don't forget that donations, when somebody donates, they donate from the mindset of, they want to give. They feel some sort of connection to this cause. All you're doing is retargeting them based on, hey, do you still feel connection to keep going? You're
I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, all donation it comes down to ego significance. I mean, if you really look at the psychological triggers that get someone to donate, I mean, it's the same reason of why somebody wants to make an impact, right? Somebody wants to make an impact for only a couple of reasons that we as human beings have done a really good job at making. Our job as human beings is to try to make ourselves feel like we're not selfish, but deep down we just are.
Yep.
And so that charity is one of those that really we must persuade and use that psychological trigger.
Yep.
And that's really what it comes down to. I mean, call a spade a spade.
Yeah, and you asked the same question at the end there. It sounds like you need a spokesperson to become the celebrity. Look, here's one thing, and I'll let Scott kind of touch on this quickly, but the reality is every single company that you can think of that is successful, or at least sees quite a lot of success, that you remember, right, that you celebrity character to it, whether it be the actual CEO like Tesla with Elon Musk, or whether it be a spokesperson like Nike and all of their athletes. It doesn't really matter. If you really want to take your brand and your business to a stage where people recognize it and connect with it and feel that intimacy, then you have to have a person like you can't create intimacy between a logo and a person. Let's put it that way.
No, not at all. Yeah, you always you have to have somebody, because people, it takes a lot of money to get someone to buy into a brand.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So look, on that note, Scott, number one, thank you so much for joining. I'm going to send out an email because everyone on my, all 27,000, 28,000 members of Funnelytics need to watch this interview. Everyone needs to understand these fundamental principles of ROI. At the end of the day, this is where marketing needs to be going. This is what if you want your business to be around for a long time, and you're not just looking for, a quick fix or a quick cash injection, and you're actually looking to build something, then this is the foundation. You don't have
basically, if you don't use this, at some point you're gonna get fucked.
Yeah,
is what Michael's saying without actually saying it. And I know it. Everybody that's smart know it, and that's why we're working with some of the top, 7 and 8 figure entrepreneurs. I mean, I just had somebody that, they're going to do $13-14 million this year, and we have someone flying down to them to help them because they know this is the only way that they're going to be able to sustainably grow. I had a company that spends $500 million on internet advertising contact me that I have a call with next week that loves this stuff. And
$500 million, you can do a lot of ROI with $500 million.
Oh, you can do a lot with when they asked me what I would do with $500 million, I was just like, and this is the same time I was writing a book, and I was just like, fuck, I don't even know what I would do with $500 million, but I would have some motherfucking fun.
You know what I would do? I would buy a yacht first, and then spend the remaining $400 million.
Exactly. So anyways, the best of the best are using this. It's going to continue to pick up steam. I mean, this is only early days for it. I would recommend doing this now because, of course, the early adopter phase is the one where you make all the money.
Always. Well, thank you so much, Scott. Appreciate you joining and having this call. And if anyone wants more information, there's a bunch of links, but go to the roimethod.com and discover this stuff for yourself. Contact Scott if you fit within the demographic and you want to work with him, which I highly, highly suggest and recommend. I work with him in his Project Nuclear group. So do it. On that note, buddy, I will catch you very soon, and we will chat not too long.
Awesome, man.
Peace.